of that nature. There's a little bit of a lag here, so it looks like I'm live. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Tonight I've got a few different things happening. I'm going to give you an overview of what's happening with the project. And I'm super excited to have not one, but two special guests this evening joining me. Chris Child and Micah Frank, who both have a song called Stargazer in the Morph VR project. They'll be joining in a few minutes, and we'll talk a little bit about their creative process, background, how they started collaborating, and then after that I'm going to do a live VR performance using my Quest 2 in VR. Some quick updates. A few things have been happening since the last live stream. So the biggest thing is that the Rift version of the app is actually live on the Oculus Store now. So that's huge. So if you own an Oculus Rift or a Rift S, you can just put on the device, you can go and browse right in the VR headset, just search for Morph, and you should be able to find and install the free version of the project. So I'm going to post that link and other links during this chat over in the chat, so go and check these links out. Here's the link there to the Oculus Store Rift experience. And then for everybody else who has a Quest 1 or a Quest 2, or a Rift or Rift S, you can get Morph over on SideQuest VR. So I just put links to those two things. For those who are joining for the first time and don't really know anything about the project, quick overview. So Morph is an abstract, interactive music VR experience for the Oculus Rift, Rift S, Quest 1, and Quest 2. A public beta, sort of an early version, was released a few months back. And so you can, with the links over there in the chat, you can go and check that out. It's a free VR app. It includes 9 songs from amazing ambient, electroacoustic, experimental, electronic artists, such as Chris and Micah, who are going to join in a few minutes. So there's 9 tracks, and what you get to do is put on the VR headset and enter this interesting, abstract, artsy world and interact with the music in a live spatial audio soundscape. So the different tracks of music are literally floating around you, and you can grab these different elements, and their distance from you is what's live mixing the song and creating, through HRTF, a spatial audio experience. So when you put the objects that are the different tracks of audio above you or below you, left or right, it sounds like you're being immersed in 360 audio. So I've been working on what's going to be the official version of the app, and I'm hoping that will actually come out not too long from now, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks at the most. I was hoping that Oculus was going to give an update about when I could be able to get an app like mine onto the Quest store. Right now, you have to do the whole side loading thing where you go to SideQuest VR and set up your Quest with Develop Remote. And honestly, it's a bit of a pain. It's worth it because there's a lot of interesting apps and games on SideQuest. But it's a little bit of a pain, so I was hoping that the official version of Morph will come out when I can get onto the Quest store. But if that takes a while, and it might, because they have not given an update about it, I don't really know. But I'm hoping that the next real version will come out probably in just a couple of months, and that's going to have a bunch more songs, 5 or 6 more songs from some amazing artists. I'm sort of overhauling a lot of the art aspects of it and adding some pretty cool audio features. Until then, to tide you over, you can also get the soundtrack for the project. It's free on Bandcamp, and I'm posting the link now over in the chat. So go check that out, and you can check out Chris and Micah's track Stargazer. I have a couple tracks of my own with Symbion Project, and Chris and I have a project called Dispack, which is sort of an ambient techno musical endeavor. We've got a song there, so yeah, check that out. So, yeah, making steady progress on V2. I'm super excited. The app has now been downloaded, I think, almost 700 times across the different platforms where you can get it. So that's super excited. If you've tried it out and like it, if you could leave me a review, that's super helpful, just because I think it bumps me up in the search when you go and search for the app. So overall, things have been going really well on that front. So without further ado, I think it would be really great to introduce Chris and Micah, have them join the project here. So in a moment, just a second here, I'm going to shrink my screen down to make some room here for the two of them. I have known Chris for many years now, probably 20 years now or so. And Micah, I have met more recently. And let me get everything set up here and fade in. And hey, guys, welcome to the live stream.
Hi, thanks.
Hello, thank you.
Cool. Okay, I can hear both of you. I can see both of you. That's good. The live streaming is still a little new for me. So this is the first time I've had two guests. So thanks for joining me. You guys are both on the East Coast. How are things back east?
Dark.
Cold.
Dark and cold. Okay. Here it's dark, raining, and cold. So we're in similar straits. Tonight I'm enjoying a little Suntory time, Toki whiskey. You guys partaking in anything this evening?
I'm jealous. I have my mug, but
nice.
Just some Ayurvedic tea. Kind of pretty boring.
Yeah, Micah, and you?
I've got some like micro batch whiskey from somewhere in the Southwest. I got it for the holidays.
Oh, nice.
And I put some lemon juice and simple syrup. It's an old fashioned, I guess.
Oh yeah, that sounds nice. Yeah, I've gotten really into just whiskey and soda water and lime.
It's always a good combo.
Well, kampai?
Kampai.
Kampai.
So, I don't think I actually know the story. How did you guys meet each other?
Micah, can I?
Yeah, go for
it. eBay.
eBay. Okay.
I bought a synthesizer off of Micah on eBay. He was selling a MS-20 synthesizer. I think it was 2006. Is that right, Micah? 2006?
So original MS-20.
Yeah, original.
2007 probably.
2007. Okay.
Yeah, because I'd already moved into the studio in Dumbo, and that was a year.
That was okay.
Yeah, 2007. Yeah.
So it was 2007, and I bought it. I won it. I was really excited because MS-20 was like on my top synth. And I believe Micah came to where I was working at the time, which was a studio in Manhattan, and delivered the goods. And I thought, okay, this seems like a cool guy, And I think we had a good chat and decided to meet up. And I went to your studio, I think in Dumbo. I remember.
Right.
Shortly after, maybe. And then kind of in ways that happen a lot in New York, people just kind of disappear for a while and get sucked in. I think you moved to Berlin, and then I followed Micah's Pure Magnetic sample for a while because they're really excellent and unique and
we had a few emails back and forth throughout the years, and then I think finally, once you found out I moved back to New York, we decided to meet up and start making some music together.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
I just posted a link to Pure Magnetic over in the chat if people want to check out Micah's stuff. We can talk a little bit more about the plugins you make as well.
Cool.
So, okay, well, so that means you guys have known each other, then for over a decade.
Yeah, and I think more like 2017, 2018 started really working on stuff together.
Cool. Well, yeah. So let's talk about that. So after years of knowing each other, you guys finally ended up roughly in the same place, or the ability to visit each other. How did you? Was it more spur of the moment deciding to work together? Did you plan this for a while? How did it come together?
No, it was really random. I still don't remember exactly why, but I remember emailing you and being like, hey, you should come by the studio and have a chat about just kind of catching up. I was kind of curious to hear what stuff that he'd been working on, and it was one of those things where, a lot of the times, okay, we talk about it, and never really happens. And Mike was like, yeah, sure, I'll come on over. He come over. And then, I think we went to, was it a Tim Heckler concert or something that night or something, or short?
Yeah, we went to a Tim Hecker concert.
Oh, cool. Yep.
And I think there was some mutual bonding over his amazing music, but how annoying the show was, because it was almost.
I don't think it was his fault though. It was a very difficult show to sit through sonically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been to a few of those in my life.
You and the mixing.
Yeah, super
combination of equal forces.
But I think from there it was just some ideas, right? We had coffee a few times and just kind of like chatted about, hey, let's try something, and then it was like in a regular.
We started get together like once a week, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once a week.
Yep.
To the studio in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and we did that for like 5 months or something before you moved to Maine.
Yeah.
And so what were those sessions like? Did you go in with sort of like, because Chris, when you and I collaborated on Dispatch, we did a fair amount of pre-planning, right? Talking about the equipment, because we knew we wanted to make techno with that sort of an ambient melodic aspect to it. And so that was like, okay, you were like, oh, we started to arrange the equipment. Was it similar when you guys worked together, or did you sort of go in and just started experimenting and then find your sound?
Well, with Mike. Yeah.
Sorry.
It was clear that I think we wanted to do something ambient, right? I mean, that was I remember that, like, what I was really attracted to a lot of the sound design and these kind of custom instruments that Micah was building using C sound and mapping them to these controllers and whatnot. That was I thought really interesting. I think the combination of my approach kind of married with that was kind of an intention to explore. So I think it set off as we wanted to do something ambient and something, you use kind of capitalizing on his kind of custom software that he was working with, and then really that was just kind of the premise of it, really. Right, Micah? Anything you want to add to?
Yeah, I think there was sort of like this. We went in with the intent to take some of the textures and sound design stuff that I was creating. I think I basically had a C sound patch, like a granular synthesis patch, running on a Raspberry Pi with a controller hooked up to it. And it had a live input that could process. I still have this, and it's available on my GitHub site actually as like a free thing. It's basically like a C sound granular workstation with 8 tracks, 4 input tracks, and 4 disc tracks, and you can tweak all of the granular parameters for each track, and it's actually kind of a nice sort of sound collage, live performance kind of thing. So we used the early iteration of that. I've since worked on it a bunch, and I think a lot of it. I think a lot of what we worked on, Chris, was kind of jam based. Like we would have some ideas. Like I would always come in and would go get a coffee, and then I'd come to your studio and you already had something you'd like patched in for the morning.
Right.
And then we would sort of just jam on that for a few hours. And then we ended up with a ton of raw material, I think, but we didn't actually end up using anything from those sessions, I think. But we
have those sessions. Yeah, we haven't.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was good. It was like a nice sort of precursor to the work that we did afterwards, which actually has been published. it was kind of us getting warmed up and figuring out what kind of music we wanted to do together. Just because you're spending a lot of time making a lot of content doesn't mean you have to like do anything with it, right? It's all about it's about the process and not so much the end result, really.
So so after these initial sessions, and you which you didn't end up releasing, or maybe you will in the future, I don't know. But did you then make changes for what ended up becoming the released material when you went into this sort of like second version of working together?
It was really starting from scratch at that point. I think we at that point, once when we worked on you're referring to the tape pieces.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are really that was really an outgrowth of a conversation, and Micah getting me enamored with tape loops, because he was working with a lot of tape loops at the time, and he would bring over his 4-track, and we kind of jam using his tape loops, and I think in a way it was like, okay, maybe that's what we need as kind of a focus.
Right.
So we decided, let's just use tape loops. We can record synthesizers, whatever, but like, let's use the DAWs just like without grid. Let's just use it as like a tape recorder, so to speak, but do all the sounds using tape loops. And lots and lots of iterations of them. And
so were you the tape loops, were you and 4-track, were you using reel-to-reels, micro cassettes? What was the format?
I was using a Porta 414 and a Porta 02. So both of those are 4 tracks.
Right. Okay.
And one of them I used just as a tape loop machine, like just with tape loops. So it would have 4 loop tracks on it. Like each loop was probably 3 to 7 seconds, depending on how I constructed the loop. And then on the other 4-track, the 414 Mark II, that would be kind of the longer bounce 2 tape. So this was like, we would record the loops, then have some sort of texture going with guitar pedals and the tape loops, like basically just like this one serial chain sort of. And then that would go into the other 4-track where we record like a full pass, like 7 minutes or whatever, rewind it, layer some other stuff on top of that. So that was my process for that.
Right.
And
I see.
Send it to Chris, and he would add more sort of composed things like bass or synths or chord progressions.
But quite
how it came together. We just bounced it back and forth like that.
Yeah. But again, quite minimally. Everything really was recorded. The idea was that like we would just build up layers upon layers of content that was recorded to these tapes, and without real concern for how they're going to align in time. It was really the intention to do something asymmetrical and out of time.
Right.
Well, and I'm glad that was your approach, because that works insanely well with the approach to the Morph VR project. And so I think of all the music that's in the project, other than the custom composed stuff I did, your piece Stargazer is the most perfect for it, right? Because there are a few things. In fact, there are a few. Actually, I don't know if there's a single element that is really fully synchronized, right? I think every loop that you gave me is a different loop length, and so as you're in the experience and those loops start to get out of sync with each other, it really creates this amazing textural bed. But yeah, nothing is in sync with anything else.
Yeah. No, that was the intention behind that for sure. Yeah.
We definitely wanted to get off the grid and away from meter and sense of rhythm, basically.
And form too. I think that was something this is really, to me, it was initially an exercise in just getting out of habitual ways of working and things of,
right.
Okay, section goes, this is a section, this is a section. This was more like pure painting where you're just, and whatever comes out and evolves the way it does. You don't know where you are in time. And that was kind of the part of the fun.
Well, so it makes me wonder that when composing very abstract music, right, that lacks song form and even sort of track synchronization, how do you know when you're done?
Yeah, that was hard.
Right, because you could just keep making loops on loops on loops and loops. And did you know like how long you wanted the pieces to be? And so you would need to be like, oh, okay, we need like sort of this much amount of material to make a 10-minute long song, or what were the constraints that guided you?
I think for me now, like in my process, and it took me a while to realize it, but it's about, for me, it's just taking time in between iterations and then listening back in like a very open mindset. So you're done when the whole thing just makes sense. Like if that does that make sense to you? Like
it does to me as a musician.
Right. I mean, you play it back and there, especially in music where there's no rhythm or meter, there's just a sense of time passing, and that changes depending on what your state is. So going in one day, it might seem like, oh, this section is going on too long, and then this section doesn't come in right or something. And then listening another day, it might be totally different. You might say, oh, it works perfectly. But for me, it's like, I know it's done when the whole thing makes sense. Like you sit there and you listen to it, and the sense of time is perfect. The length of each section or the arrangement builds up perfectly, or falls away perfectly, or builds up and then falls away, depending on whatever structure it has. But at the end, it's like it works. It sits in the right place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Chris, how do you feel? Do you agree with that, or?
I do. I think what Mike is getting at also is these pieces were very much about kind of spaces, abstract spaces, or an impression of a physical place. Mike and I spent a lot, when he came up to work on these. He came up to my studio in Maine, and we did a lot of field recording around some hikes and walks and whatnot, and we used those field recordings as well. We fed those recordings into the 4 tracks, and the intention was also to kind of capture kind of some of the beauty and just the
natural surroundings of our environment.
The space, there's an energy of space,
right?
And I think given that, yes, it's completely, it's amorphous, it's abstract. You wouldn't be able to pin down like a necessary structure, but there's like in those kind of places, there's a natural form. There's a natural evolution. There's a subtle change, and that's evident, in minimalist music and whatnot. It's a slow change over time, and I think the notion of it feeling complete, it is sort of hard to articulate and pin down what that is, but there is a sense of evolution, and there's a sense of kind of being embodied and in a particular space. And,
interesting. Somebody on the chat, Larry. Hey, Larry, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Larry was asking if you ever go back to like previous iterations and actually find out that you like prefer a previous iteration to what ended up being the final version. Does that ever happen to you, or do you actually like never really go back to earlier versions of tracks?
Yeah, I don't usually go back to earlier versions of tracks. I mean, some friends will tell me that the earlier version it's the best, it's the most pure, it's the most raw, and but I generally, I mean, Mike and I both, right? We generated so many versions.
I can imagine.
And they really go through, like mega changes where it's a different piece entirely.
Yeah.
And, to subtle ones, but I
thing out and start again or start.
Yeah, that was also very much a part of the process where we would start something and we would like maybe one aspect of it or a few, and then and it was so we left it very open to that all these could be very malleable.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to post
like a mix from a mix standpoint. Maybe we go back to earlier versions sometimes. Like
I think actually for one of them we for Static Wheels we went back to an earlier mix version. Now,
and I do a lot with my own stuff too. I go back to an earlier mix from 2 weeks ago or a month ago or whatever.
We cooked the pasta too long.
That happens. Yeah. I'm going to post a link over in the chat. So this is a link to Chris and Micah's Bandcamp page, which is where you can find the release called Tape Pieces Volume 1, which contains Stargazer, which is the track that they graciously let me add to the Morph VR project. And so if you go in, you should go check out the original and then listen to the Morph version. It's really interesting to hear with just not a huge amount of tracks how a song can really sort of evolve very differently over time. Especially, I think in the Morph version, there's some really extreme panning going on, right? Because essentially it's a binaural mix that you're listening to. So if you have headphones on, it's pretty extreme where you hear like, one of your tape loops just hard left, and it like, as it's like floating around, it goes hard right. And so it definitely has more extreme sort of spatial aspects, I think, from the original. And it's sort of interesting because I think, Chris, you mentioned this as well. There were moments where you're like, wow, that one track is super exposed, right?
Sure.
Like it's very raw sounding. Like in your version, it was, buried or layered in with all these other textures. And in the Morph version, it's like, oh my God, there's that one synthesizer tape loop that is like right up front. And it's sort of hard sometimes for artists to hear their tracks featured that way. So I appreciate both of you letting go of some control so some other ecosystem can mix your music.
Sure. I really because it reminded me of it felt like a fresh piece that I forgot about that element that was then showcased in a way that hadn't been before.
Right. Well, so I want to wrap up a little bit here so I can move over into the VR performance of your piece. Very quickly, Micah, you mentioned earlier that you do a fair amount of software development, and I'm a huge fan of your Pure Magnetic plugins. Do you do all of them in C Sound, or is that or a mixture of different tools?
Yeah, it's all C Sound.
Wow, super powerful. I'm amazed because I'll load up different plugins and they have just such a different feel. I mean, obviously you're doing a different C Sound technique, some sort of like weird sort of granular blurring or some sort of odd delay, but it's what an amazing tool for those of you that make electronic music that have not fully embraced the sort of intricate coding side. C Sound. I mean, is C Sound the most powerful sort of coding engine out there for audio?
Oh, I mean,
or is it just one you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, there's Jack, there's Max MSP, obviously, which limited platform in terms of like there's a limited host environment that you can use that on.
Right.
For me, yeah, I mean, C Sound has definitely been the most powerful and sonically advanced software I've used for for coding plugins. I've used other frameworks as well, but this is definitely, it's the easiest to prototype in. It's the easiest to deploy on.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Well, I appreciate you taking all the time to make these amazing plugins. They fulfill such an interesting and specific need in my music creation that is just not fulfilled. So many plugins are just, like emulating vintage gear or things like that, and I end up gravitating a lot towards plugins that will take a chance. And I find a lot of your plugins take interesting chances, and I end up with a lot of musical happy accidents from that.
cool. Yeah, that's the intention there. It's a pleasure to make them because I get to experiment on my own as well. I don't want to make a compressor or a
Right.
vintage EQ emulation. So for me, it's all about having fun for myself and trying to realize what kind of experimental sounds I can get out of C Sound and then deploy them to the public.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you do it because they think the last time I typed a line of C Sound code was probably in Dr. B's class at Berkeley.
Yeah.
All right.
Chris, have you dabbled or done any work in C Sound over the years?
I tried to get Micah to reteach me, and I use my plugins.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for making them, Mike. I posted a link to Pure Magnetic over in the chat. So if anybody wants to check out Micah's plugins, do you still do the? You've got some releases also on Bandcamp where your plugins come with the single or the release. Are you still doing that?
Yeah. So Pure Magnetic is not only a sound music software label, but it's also a music label as well. So we've been putting out releases for almost 2 years now, I think. And yeah, a few of the releases come with plugins. A few of my last release with Chris came with a plugin as well.
Oh, right. Which plugin was that? Do you remember?
That was Strata came with Pieces Volume 2.
Right, yeah.
Strata.
And that came out last summer, is that correct? Did I get that right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And so what's next for Foil? Is the next Foil release something from you, Micah?
Yes, I think so. It's coming out next on Tuesday.
Whoa,
yeah.
This Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, this is very timely. Do you want to do a quick pitch for this upcoming release?
Well, it's called Cambria, and it's an EP of 5 tracks that I sort of realized through an inadvertent process, as most of my musical processes are. So at the time I was listening to a lot of Daniel Lanois, and I was trying to sort of emulate what he was doing with his steel slide guitar on a modular synthesizer. So
cool.
Constraining everything to the particular scale and then being able to slide 2 of the notes up a semitone to change the scale, but also get the melodic elements of the playing to slide as well. And I studied all of his techniques, and it was very difficult to try and program it on the modular, but I ended up with a lot of cool little sounds. And then I also had a bunch of textures that I built with tape loops through the process that I was describing before. I took these 2 elements together, this sort of modular steel slide guitar sound, along with those textural tape loop elements, and I sort of juxtaposed them or merged them together, and then recomposed a bunch of stuff from there. Yeah, it's kind of a more, to me, a lot of it came out sounding almost sort of like very vintage sounding. Like it reminds me of a lot of sounds from Neil Young's Harvest, or like the Texas soundtrack. And so I kind of went with that after I had this sort of sound established, and that's kind of what the idea of the album sort of came from, this Western highway road mentality, or sort of that kind of almost road movie type of scene. a lot of it sort of reminded me of like John Steinbeck, Grapes of Wrath,
Right,
or like
yeah.
like On the Road kind of stuff.
Wow, very cool. That sounds super interesting. So you said Tuesday. Next Tuesday it comes out?
Tuesday, yeah.
Cool. Okay, everybody, yeah, go and check out the Foil Imprints Bandcamp page. Maybe while I'm doing the performance, Chris, if you want to post a link to the Foil Imprints Bandcamp page in the chat, the YouTube chat, that would be good. So yeah, people go check that out. Micah's going to be releasing this EP next week, and then I'm sure there will be other releases for Foil Imprints over the rest of the year. So thank you both so much for joining. I'm super excited to do this live performance now. Any last things you want to say to the internet out there? Chris, you don't sound prepared.
we got to do Tape Pieces Volume 3. That's our next. Yeah.
That sounds nice. I like that idea.
And happy 2021.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining, Micah. Oh, sorry, Micah. Any last parting words?
I was just saying happy 2021 as well.
Cool.
Riffing Chris.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you both taking the time. Stay warm back there on the East Coast, and thanks for joining. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Take care, guys. I'm gonna fade you out here. Fade in this large version of me. All right. Hey, so super excited to have them join. Let me close some things off here and get ready to do this live performance. So, right, yeah, so they gave me this piece, Stargazer. In fact, I think the Stargazer was one of the very first songs I put into the project, even a few years ago when I had early prototypes that almost had no art and just sort of the most basic aspects. And so it's been in there for a while, and it'll be in the official release that comes out in a few months. So I'm going to get some stuff situated here. I need to get Unity up and running so that I can get that going. So bear with me a second here while I start this stuff. All right, so this is Stargazer from Chris Child and Micah Frank from their release, Tape Pieces Volume 1.
you.